ॐ श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्द गोविन्द सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। यस्वानुभावमखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपमतितितीर्षतां तमोन्दं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां। योगीन्द्राय नमस्तस्मै शुकाय ब्रह्मरूपिणे संसारसर्पदष्टं यो विष्णुरातममुमुचत कालव्यालमुखग्रास त्रासनिर्नाशहेतवे श्रीमद्भागवतं शास्त्रं कलौकीरेण भाषितम् एतस्मादपरं किञ्चित् मनःशुद्ध्यै न विद्यते जन्मान्तरे भवेत् पुण्यं तदा भागवतं लभेत्। ज्ञानवैराग्यसम्पूर्णान् हरिभक्तिपरायणान् पूर्वाचार्यात् अहं वन्दे सम्प्रदायप्रवर्तकान्। भगवन्नाम साम्राज्य लक्ष्मी सर्वस्वविग्रहं श्रीमद्बोधेन्द्रयोगीन्द्र देशिकेन्द्रम् उपास्महे। कलिकालोचितं धर्मं नाम संकीर्तनात्मकं निर्णेतुम् अवतीर्णं तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। हरे रामेति कृष्णेति नाम संकीर्तनं सदा लोकक्षेमाय कुर्वन्तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्तेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मः प्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनम्। श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषुभिस्तत्क्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखात् अमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीमद्भागवताख्योऽयं प्रत्यक्षः कृष्ण एव हि स्वीकृतोऽसि मया नाथ मुक्त्यर्थं भवसागरे मनोरथो मदीयोऽयं सफलः सर्वथा त्वया निर्विघ्नेनैव कर्तव्यो दासोऽहं तव केशव। श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः। गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्द गोविन्द। Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining earlier. Okay, so what we'll do today is we'll do a quick review, second chapter 1 to 11, and then I'll go and we are catching up still on the meaning because of the Mahatmyam stuff. So that is done. So I will go and summarize the meaning of chapter 1 today, and then we will continue with chapter 2 stanzas, right? And then eventually by next class, I think we'll be on in line with the stanzas and the meanings and everything else. Okay, so Shobha and Nikki, can you do the stanzas 1 to 11, second chapter?
I will. Thank you. I'll try. Thank you. Gopika Jeevana Smaranam Govinda Govinda Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Adadvidiyo Dhyayah Vyasa Uvacha Idhi Samprasna Samrushto Vipranam Raumaharshanihi Pratibhujya Vachastesham Pravaktum Upachakrame सूत उवाच यं प्रव्रजन्म जन्म अनुपेदमपेदकृत्यं त्वैपायनो विरहकादराजुहाव पुत्रेदि तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि
So on the first
यस्वा
and the first is ஒரே ஒரு பிரவ்ரஜந்தம். Okay.
प्रव्रजन्तं
Yeah.
पेदमपेदकृत्यं
That's right.
यस्वानुभावमखिल श्रुतिसारमेघम् अध्यात्मदीपं तिदिदीर्षदां तमोन्तं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् मुनयः साधु पृष्टोऽहं भवद्भिर्लोकमङ्गलं यत्कृतः कृष्ण संप्रश्नो येनात्मा सुप्रसीदति सैव पुंसां परो धर्मो यदो भक्तिरदोक्षजे अहैदुक्य प्रतिहता ययात्मा संप्रसीदति वासुदेव भगवती भक्तियोग प्रयोजितः जनयत्यासु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं च यदहैतुकं
Shubhan, the first line Vasudeve. Okay. Vasudeva அப்படிங்க தேவே.
देवे भगवती भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः धर्मस्वनुष्ठित पुंसां विश्वक्सेन कदासूयः नोत्पादयेत् यदि रतिं श्रम एव हि केवलं धर्मस्य याववर्गस्य नार्दोर्धायोग कल्पते नार्दस्य धर्मैकान्तस्य कामो लाभाय हि स्मृतः कामस्य नेन्द्रिय प्रीतिर्लाभो जीवेत यावता जीवस्य तत्त्वजिज्ञासा नार्दो यश्चेष कर्मभिः
And the first line, Shubha, first line middle preetihi. Ninga preetir, you said, right? That is preetir is correct if you are saying it together, but because we are pausing in the middle, it becomes preetihi. Okay.
प्रीतिः लाभो जीवत वेतयावता जीवस्य तत्त्वविज्ञासा नार्दो यश्चेष कर्मभिः वदन्ति तत्त्वसत्त्वं यज्ञानमदत्वयं ब्रह्मेदि परमात्मेदि भगवानिदि शब्दयेत् शब्दयेत्.
That's where we stopped, right? 11 we stopped. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's. So we saw, in the last 3 classes, we saw the 5 chapters of Bhagavata Mahatmya. We said the 6th one is more around the logistics of performing this thing, Saptaham, which we won't have to worry about right now. So we won't talk about it. So we covered the Mahatmya. So we have to remember that the Mahatmyam was part of the Padma Purana, where they dedicated 6 chapters on the greatness of Mahatmya. So some of the things which we saw in the beginning of that, now we are actually getting into the actual Bhagavatam, which is starting now, first chapter, right? So then you will see some of those things a little bit of an overlap because they are summarizing. So they will pick some things from the main Bhagavatam to summarize, right? So that's why you'll see some overlapping here. Anyway, so the first one itself, I think so the half of the meaning is going to be the first 3 stanzas. Then I'm going to take the rest of the stanzas and then summarize it, because that's the importance of the first 3 stanzas, because all 3 are are coming in the Dhyana Stokam also, right? We said that. So in the first stanza itself, Vyasa is saying, is starting off with Satyam Param Dhimahi, right? And then if you look at the last canto, the 12th canto, last chapter, 13th chapter, there's a 19th stanza again where he says Satyam Param Dhimahi, where they're talking about the greatness of the Bhagavata Mahatmya as part of the Phalashruti of Bhagavatam, right? So the importance here is on both bookends he's saying there, because Vyasa is inviting everyone to meditate, to perform dhyanam. That's what he starts with, saying, come everybody, let's all perform dhyanam, right? Now, why this is important? Why is Vyasa calling everybody for dhyanam? Because he says, for somebody to truly comprehend and understand the greatness of everything that is there in Mahatmyam, you have to reach a level of spiritual realization before you can actually understand the essence of it. right? Because remember, this is Shravana Yogam, right? So you have to be in an elevated position to understand it. So if you take a simple thing, everybody hears a story about Krishna. You tell the story of Krishna to a 3-year-old versus a 16-year-old to if I tell it to you. Each one has a different level of absorption capacity. It's the same story, but each one can absorb it differently, comprehend differently. So that's what Vyasa is saying. You become more spiritually realized, and then you come for the meditation. And once you reach that, in the middle of Bhagavatam, I'm going to put you everything about Sri Krishna, and right in the middle of that, I'm going to put the love that Gopikas have, so you'll be able to understand it better. So that's what he invites everybody, saying, you come for the Gayatri. He's putting the Gayatri mantra Dhimahi, because all Gayatri mantras say, I'm meditating, right? I'm meditating on Shiva, I'm meditating on Vishnu, on all those things. He's saying, I'm putting the Gayatri mantra because I'm calling everybody to meditate here. And the important thing is, unlike an individual Gayatri mantra, which individually you meditate on, he's saying this is a group meditation that we're going to be doing. So everybody who is chanting it, everybody who's listening to it is part of a group meditation here. Now, this word dhyanam, right? If you remember the Ashtanga Yogam, which we did in the 4th chapter of Narayanyam, it talks about Ashtanga Yogam, it talks about Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyanam, then Samadhi. So the dhyanam, which is the meditation, is the 7th stage of the Ashtanga Yoga, because right after that is Samadhi, right? You're in one with the Lord. So this yoga, so dhyanam automatically is part of yoga. And this yoga is not Ashtanga Yoga, but this is part of Shravana Yoga, like we said, right? Because even when we come to this Bhagavatam class, to some extent we follow the other steps of the Ashtanga Yoga, right? We are not thinking, first thing in Yama is you have to behave good with others. 15 of us are sitting here. We are not doing anything bad to anybody else. Step number 1 accomplished. It's that simple. At least for that 1 hour, we won't do anything bad to anybody else. We are also, following the right principles. We are sitting here. So anyway, so it's kind of, while it is not necessarily Ashtanga Yoga, it is like that, dedicating that 1 hour or dedicating the Saptaham, like we spoke about the greatness of the Saptaham, doing that for that 7 days, you are kind of practicing a little bit of that Ashtanga Yoga. So by listening to this, you are kind of doing the Dhyana, right? Shravana, as part of the Shravana Yoga. Now, the second thing he talks about here is, that is the Dhimahi portion, right? Then he says, Satyam Param Dhimahi. Who am I going to meditate on? So there are 2 things. He says, I'm going to meditate on the truth. Now, what is the truth, right? Because everything changes, right? Now, what we are right now is different. Our seasons change. Everything changes around this world. He says there's only one thing, which is that truth. So that truth, which is the Brahman, which doesn't change at all, right? Because that is the identity of the Brahman. It is always true every day. There's no change to the Brahman, right? She says, I'm going to meditate on that Brahman, which is Satyam, and which is Param, which is the topmost absolute truth, because there could be other small intermediary truths, and the truths may be there for a small amount of time. Something which is everlasting, doesn't change at all, for a unchangeable, that absolute truth I'm going to meditate on. That's how he starts with this Bhagavatam thing. Then in this stanza, he goes and describes the characteristics of the Brahman, very similar to how Bhattatripat started Sandra Nanda Bodhatmakam. He also described the characteristics of the Brahman. And then in the end, he says, Hanta Bhagyam Jananam, because I'm looking at Guru Varpan, that Guru Varpan is only there. That's what Bhagavatam is going to say a little later. Bhattatripat summarized it in the first stanza itself. But anyway, here he describes the characteristics, saying, so Janma Dyasi, he says, the one who is solely responsible for the creation, the maintenance, and the destruction of the universe. So we go to the 3rd chapter and we start seeing the quick summary of the avatarams. We'll talk about how the various things happen. So anyway, let's say you are the responsible for creation, everything. Anyway, that's the first part of it. Second, he says, this Brahman is aware of all the things, all the manifestations which are happening, but it is not connected with it, right? It is always independent and outside of it, because the moment it becomes attached to it, it becomes a Jivatma. That's what Kapilopakyanam of Sankhya philosophy says, the Prakriti and Purusha. The Purusha is independent from that, because the moment it gets attached to it, it has all the attributes of it, which means it becomes like a Jivatma. So it's outside of all of this manifestation. Then the Tene Brahma Hrida. So you who imparted the Vedas first to Brahma, because Brahma is the next in line, right? So you imparted the Vedas to Brahma, from where everybody else also got. And then it says, this Brahman also is such that even the greatest of the sages are mistake it in illusion. So he says, even just like how you have the mirage effect, right, of seeing water when there is no water. He says this is so difficult to understand, this Brahman, that even the greatest of sages who are enlightened always get, caught up with it. They also get stuck, right, in truly understanding this. And it's only because, however, it's only because of this Brahman that this world is possible for us or visible. So one nice example somebody gave, right? So they said, you all know that example, some rope is lying, and then you look at it, you think it is snake, you put the light, then you realize it is rope. So we know that context, right? But what he's really trying to say here is, if if that rope itself was not there, you will not think that it is a snake, right? So the rope was there was no light, you thought it is a snake. Then when the light came, you realized it's a rope, not a snake. But the rope, there should have been something like a rope for you to even think that it could have been a snake. Because if the rope was not there, you're not going to go think around there is a snake, right? So that's what they're kind of saying, that it is because of you, who is the absolute truth, which is the rope in this case, a parallel example, that we think the world exists and the world is a snake, but it's not the reality. But the rope had to be there for me to think that the world is also there, right? That's a kind of comparison he's giving. It's only because of you that we think the rest of the world still exists, but that you are the ultimate truth. So with this, he's kind of saying, come, let's go meditate on this supreme Brahman, because of whom all these things exist, who is the absolute truth and no change to any of that. So that's the first stanza. Then the second stanza, he says, completely, for us to kind of get into this Bhagavatam, he says you completely reject any activities you are doing which are materially motivated. So if you're doing something saying that I'm going to perform this thing so that I'll actually get something in return, right? I'm going to perform this homa because I'm going to get this thing in return. He says completely reject all of those things, because this Bhagavatam is going to give you the ultimate truth, right? Because all the basic necessities that we all worry about, it says, which is, we eat, we drink, we sleep, we mate, which is saying those are the four things which all the animals also do. So he says these four things which all the humans do are the same things animals do, right? And he says the what differentiates you up is the requirement to be able to think about the God and do all these things. So he says you have to elevate yourselves to that level. So he says don't worry about doing things. Majority of the things we do is related to these four things. Prayers we do, right, or homums we do, everything is related. So he says don't do, because in the lower levels of the civilization, people who are not realized always say, I'm going to go, I'm praying to the Lord, so I go get a job. Okay, great. Now the moment you get a job, you don't have to go to the temple anymore then, right? Or that person will stop going to the temple because he's got the job, right? That's what he was praying for. So same thing he says, so don't attach outcomes to your prayers and everything, because that's not how it actually works. So that is what is he says, people who are not realized think of it in that way and they attach outcome. And in the higher advanced people who study the Vedas, who do the Vedic ceremony, their outcome is not necessary to live right now, but it is to attain a heavenly planet, to attain Swargam. So that's what they perform all these homums and everything. But he says neither of this Bhagavatam is propounding. It says reject all of these, which are results of things that you're going to do. You have to come out of that, because that's not what Bhagavatam is going to deliver, which is kind of what we saw in the Mahatmya, right? And that's what he's also saying here. He says it'll eradicate it'll give you the ultimate truth, the ultimate benefit, which will eradicate you from miseries which come from your mind and body, miseries which come from other living beings, and miseries which come from the environment, right? Those are three types of miseries one person can have. It will eliminate all of those things and help you with that, right? And so with this, he says here also, this Bhagavatam, it says, is it's compiled by Veda Vyasa when he was in a state of samadhi. So it was not like he was just decided to write. Like he went into a state of samadhi, and then he saw stuff and he saw this was required, and it was actually written by him or composed by him right at that point. So he says there's no alternative, there's no second to Bhagavatam here, because it was already done by that. So it is definitely an absolute commentary. And the last one other thing it says here is all the other different methods of worships or Puranas which are there, right? It says that it worships a particular god or something. But here, eventually, Bhagavatam is going to talk about the Purusha, and we'll talk a little bit of that in the third Dashakam also. He talks about Purusha, which is that if you remember the Virat Swarupam, he says everything is contained in it. So Bhagavatam is not going to go and pick a portion of that. He says, talks about the Supreme Lord, who is all the demigods, Indra, Agni, everybody you think of is already part of the Supreme God. That's what this Bhagavatam is talking about. So he says, don't worry about other things. You pick the right one, just focus on this. That's kind of the essence of what the second stanza is telling. Then the third one is saying, now we spoke about, we saw the example of Narada chanting the Vedas, and then him asking the question to the Sanakas, I chanted the Vedas, why nothing happened? And they spoke about how Bhagavatam is the essence of the Vedas, right? And that is more powerful. So this is what it is saying, Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam, that particular stanza. He's saying it is a ripened Nigamam is Vedas. So Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam, which is a ripened fruit which is taken from the Vedas, right? So it says you consider a big tree. Think of the tree as the Vedas. The tree has several branches. So those are all the limbs of the Vedas, the Puranas which are there, the Upanishads which are there. Those are all the limbs of the tree that is there, which is standing, the tree of the Vedas which is standing there. Now that tree has a fruit. Now, the essence of the tree, like we gave when we spoke about that example, Sanaka Rishis gave, the essence of the tree is in the fruit, right? So that's what it says. The Bhagavatam is the fruit which is actually come from the tree. Now, this fruit is special because this fruit, it says, a parrot, when it goes in, it can go identify or a bird, it can go identify which is the right fruit. So what the bird does is it goes and pecks on the fruit. So the fruit that the bird pecks and then the fruit falls down is the most sweet fruit because the bird knows which fruit to eat, right? So he says that particular shuka also means a parrot, and it can also refers to a bird here because the bird is going and pecking on it, right? And now one very loose interpretation of why it is Shuka could be that Shuka Brahman heard everything and he's narrating it like a parrot or repeating it like a parrot. But that is not the case because Shuka, as we all spoke about, he was realized, he was a liberated soul at birth, right? He did not want to even do this, right? He had already walked away, right? And then we saw that story. He had walked away, but when he heard it, even he felt, oh my God, this is so sweet that I have to go learn it, right? So Shuka is not of the type that who hears something and then repeats it. So that's not the way you should interpret this. It should be interpreted as Shuka goes in and then he's pecking on that, and then the fruit falls because the bird is pecking on it, and that fruit is available for us right now. So that is the fruit that has been given, which is the summary of all the essence of the Vedas. So that is the beautiful thing which is available. Rasika bhuvi bhavukaha, for us, all of us, it's a rasam for all of us to enjoy the essence of this fruit. So that's the kind of the first three things, right, which is summarized, which are the critical aspects of this first answer, first chapter. Now the rest of the stuff kind of goes into a little bit of an overlap where it says Naimisho Nimisha Kshetra. It starts off by saying in the forest of Naimisharanya, all the sages headed by Shaunaka Rishi were performing 1,000-year yajna. And we saw that that's how the Padma Purana also said in the Mahatmya. So at the end of it, they saw they were ready. They were finally going to do the final sacrifice. So Suta Pauranika comes there. So they come and all these rishis pray to Suta Pauranika and says, you are a person who's free from all immoral and bad behavior and everybody. So everything. So you have the right behavior. You have the right characteristics. You are well versed. Number two, you're well versed in all the scriptures one needs to know. You know all the Puranas. You know all the history. So you are very knowledgeable. And more importantly, you learned it from Veda Vyasa himself, from Swayam Veda Vyasa, you have learned it. So you kind of have the right information which you learned from the right source. So there's no chance of any misknowledge or knowledge that you might actually have. And it says you are also a perfect disciple, Sudha Puranika ji, because all your teachers loved you. Veda Vyasa was adoring you. So you are a perfect disciple. So you have the Guru's blessings from Veda Vyasa, you have his blessings and Kataksham also that you have. So you are the right one to answer all of our questions. So we have a set of questions for you. So like Vishnu Sahasranamam, like all of these things, it starts with 6 questions that the Rishi, Saunaka and other Rishis ask Suta Pauranika. The first question they ask is, he says, there are a lot of things which do ultimate good for people, right? So you say, and there are a lot of ways people have explained the things which do good. He says, you tell us in a very simple way that everybody can understand what is the ultimate good. What is the thing that does ultimate good for people? That is the first question they ask. It says, please explain it in a very simple way. Number two, they ask the same thing like we saw in the Mahatmya. They say it's the age of Kali. People are all very lazy, they are quarrelsome, they have all immoral behaviors and everything. He says, they say, you know all the scriptures that you have actually learned. So he says, take the essence from all of the scriptures that you have learned. Give us a summary, give us an executive summary from all of the scriptures that you have learned, so that by listening to it, everybody gets fully satisfied. So that is the second question they actually ask. Then the third question they ask is, the son of Vasudeva, Krishna, why did he take birth? Why was he born in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva? Please explain to us why Krishna took birth, right? That is the third question they ask. Then the fourth question they ask is to say that we know that the Lord performs various activities, and there are a lot of these acharyas, everybody who have talked about the activities of the Lord, Supreme Lord. So when you think of the reason, even in Narayanam and even in Bhagavatam, the reason they talk about creation, the reason they talk about how the first creation happened, how the Mahat came about, all of that is not necessarily for us to understand how it happened, because that has already happened. It's good to know how it happened, but it has already happened. But the essence is to say this would have not been possible without the Lord, Bhagavan being there. That is the essence of it, right? So that's what he's asking here is, there are so many things that Acharyas have said, all the great things Bhagavan has done. Tell us some of the great things that Bhagavan has done, right? Give us examples of it so we know why Bhagavan is great. That's the fourth thing. And the fifth thing which they ask very nicely is that the only way somebody can be freed from the cycle of birth and death is to constantly think about the Lord and to constantly talk about his activities and pastimes. So he says, tell us all the incarnations the Lord has actually had. And we want to know what are all the incarnations he has done, why he did this incarnation, what he did in those incarnations. So we want to hear all the stories. That is number 5. And number 6, which we already discussed the answer to it in the Padma Purana, but they ask again, these people are asking here because it's kind of an overlap. That's giving a summary of the questions they asked anyways, right? So it says, once Sri Krishna has departed this earth, so all these religious principles which are there, the truth which is there, the greatness of the religion which is there, what has happened to it? Who has it gone for shelter? Where has it gone? Because when Krishna was there, he was making sure everything was working fine, everything was organized. Krishna is no longer there. Where have this gone? Right? So that's how they actually asked that question, because you see, Krishna was born, he did great Leela with Balarama. They talk about it a little bit more. They say he did great Leela with Balarama, he behaved like a human being, he did all this, but he's gone, Kali Yugam has come. So we want to know what has actually happened. And they say that, they kind of wrap it up by saying that in this Kali, which is like an ocean which is there, which we are all unable to cross, because Kali Kalam has already happened by the time they're asking this question, which we are unable to cross. You are our guide, you are our boat, because you are the most knowledgeable, you already learned it. Please help us answer these 6 questions. So that is how it starts. That is the Pratama Skandam that is there. Now, how it will go later on, just a quick thing is, like, see, if somebody asks you a question, but you take 6 days to answer it, then that person will feel bored. So what Sutta Puranika will do is, he'll give a quick executive summary in chapters 2 and 3 of all the 6 questions. He'll quickly answer those 6 questions, and then that will prompt them to ask more, and then he'll start getting into more and more details. That's how all this, because he's essentially telling what Parikshit said, or Parikshit was told, but that's essentially what the rest of the Bhagavatam ends up being. But this is the first set of 6 questions that get asked. So that ends chapter 1. So we'll now get into chapter 2 today. So we'll start from stanza 2. So Amuchechi, you and Gopiji can be student today. So stanza 12. Tach Shraddhadhana Munayo, Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashyantyatmani. So that's one word. Pashyantyatmani Chatmanam, Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. Tachraddhadhana Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashyantyatmani Chatmanam Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya.
Tachraddhadhana Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashyantyatmani Chatmanam Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. Tachraddhadhana Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashyantyatmani Chatmanam Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya.
Tachraddhadhana Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya पश्यन्दात्मनि चात्मानं भक्त्या श्रुतगृहीतया तच्छद्दधाना मुनयो ज्ञानवैराग्ययुक्तया पश्यन्दात्मनि चात्मानं भक्त्या श्रुतगृहीतया
अतः पुंभिर्द्विज श्रेष्ठा वर्णाश्रम विभागशः स्वनुष्ठितस्य धर्मस्य संसिद्धिर्हरितोषणम् अतः पुंभिर्द्विजश्रेष्ठा वर्णाश्रमविभागशः स्वनुष्ठितस्य धर्मस्य संसिद्धिर्हरितोषणम्
अधः पुंभिर्द्विजश्रेष्ठा वर्णाश्रमविभागशः स्वनुष्ठितस्य धर्मस्य संसिद्धिर्हरितोषणम् अधः पुंभिर्द्विजश्रेष्ठा वर्णाश्रमविभागशः स्वनुष्ठितस्य धर्मस्य संसिद्धिर्हरितोषणम्
अतः पुंभिर्द्विजश्रेष्ठा वर्णाश्रमविभागशः स्वनुष्ठितस्य धर्मस्य संसिद्धिर्हरितोषणम् अतः पुंभिर्द्विजश्रेष्ठा वर्णाश्रमविभागशः स्वनुष्ठितस्य धर्मस्य संसिद्धिर्हरितोषणम्
तस्मादेकेन मनसा भगवान् सात्वतां पतिः श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च ध्येयः पूज्यश्च नित्यदा तस्मादेकेन मनसा भगवान् सात्वतां पतिः श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च ध्येयः पूज्यश्च नित्यदा
तस्मादेकेन मनसा भगवान् सात्वतां पतिः श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च ध्येयः पूज्यश्च नित्यदा तस्मादेकेन मनसा भगवान् सात्वतां पतिः श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च ध्येयः पूज्यश्च नित्यदा
तस्मादेकेन मनसा भगवान् सात्वतां पतिः श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च ध्येयः पूज्यश्च नित्यदा तस्मादेकेन मनसा भगवान् सात्वतां पतिः श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च ध्येयः पूज्यश्च नित्यदा
यद अनुध्यासिना if you want to break it यदनुध्यासिना युक्ताः कर्म ग्रन्थि निबन्धनं छिन्दन्ति कोविदास्तस्य को न कुर्यात् कथारतिम् यदनुध्यासिना युक्ताः कर्म ग्रन्थि निबन्धनं छिन्दन्ति कोविदास्तस्य को न कुर्यात् कथारतिम्
यदनुध्यासिना युक्ताः कर्म ग्रन्थि निबन्धनं छिन्दन्ति कोविदास्तस्य को न कुर्यात् कथारतिम् यदनुध्यासिना युक्ताः कर्म ग्रन्थि निबन्धनं छिन्दन्ति कोविदास्तस्य को न कुर्यात् कथारतिम्
यदनुध्यासिना युक्ताः कर्मग्रन्थि निबन्धनं छिन्दन्ति कोविदास्तस्य को न कुर्यात् कथारतिम् यदनुध्यासिना युक्ताः कर्मग्रन्थि निबन्धनं छिन्दन्ति कोविदास्तस्य को न कुर्यात् कथारतिम्
शुश्रूषयोश ish sound comes there in between शुश्रूषयोश श्रद्धानस्य वासुदेव कथा रुचिः स्यान् महत् सेवया विप्राः पुण्य तीर्थ निषेवनात्.
Rajesh, could you say that first word one more time?
Yeah, Shushrushosh, sorry. Shushrushosh Shraddhadanasya. Sorry, I said a ya by mistake. That ish comes to join. Shushrushosh Shraddhadanasya Vasudeva Katha Ruchihi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punyatirtha Nishevanat.
शुश्रूषोश्रद्दधानस्य वासुदेवकथारुचिः स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्राः पुण्यतीर्थनिषेवणात् शुश्रूषोश्रद्धदानस्य वासुदेवकथारुचिः स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्राः पुण्यतीर्थनिषेवणात्
शुश्रूषो श्रद्धधानस्य वासुदेवकथारुचिः स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्राः पुण्यतीर्थनिषेवणात् शुश्रूषो श्रद्धधानस्य वासुदेवकथारुचिः स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्राः पुण्यतीर्थनिषेवणात्
शृण्वतां स्वकथां कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृद्यन्तस्तो, so is and then a sto comes there, हृद्यन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत् सताम्. शृण्वतां स्वकथां कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृद्यन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत् सताम्.
शृण्वतां स्वकथां कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृद्यन्तस्तो हृभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. शृण्वतां स्वकथां कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृद्यन्तस्तो हृभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्.
शृण्वतां स्वकथां कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृद्यन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. शृण्वतां स्वकथां कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृद्यन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्.
Rajesh, a quick question. அது வந்து shrinvatama shrunvatam சொல்லணுமா?
Shru.
Okay.
शृण्वताम्. नष्ट प्रायेषु भद्रेषु short u, नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवद्युत्तम श्लोके, भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. नष्ट प्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवद्युत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
तदा रजस्तमो भावाः काम लोभादयश्च ये चेत, next word, etair anaviddham. If you want to break it, you can break at that ra. Etair anaviddham, stitam satve prasidati, short e. तथा रजस्तमो भावाः कामलोभादयश्च ये चेत एतैरनाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति.
तदा रजस्तमो भावाः कामलोभादयश्च ये चेत एतैरनाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति. तदा रजस्तमो भावाः कामलोभादयश्च ये चेत एतैरनाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति.
तदा रजस्तमो भावाः कामलोभादयश्च ये चेत एतैरनाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति. तदा राजस्तमो भावाः कामलोभादयश्च ये चेत एतैरनाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति.
The second time you said rajas, it's rajas, okay? First time you said correctly. First line.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, sure. Okay.
Evam prasanna manaso, comma, bhagavat bhakti yogatah, bhagavat tattva vijnanam, comma, mukta sangasya jayate. Evam prasanna manaso, bhagavat bhakti yogatah, bhagavat tattva vijnanam, mukta sangasya jayate.
एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते. एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते.
एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते. एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते.
Bhidyate hridaya grantihi, that ish, that is there, you remove it, put a visarga comma, grantihi. Chidyante sarva samshayaha, kshiyante chasya karmani, short e, comma, drishta evatmanishware. Bhidyate hridaya grantihi, chidyante sarva samshayaha, kshiyante chasya karmani, drishta evatmanishware.
भिद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिः छिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशयाः क्षीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे. भिद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिः छिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशयाः क्षीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे.
भिद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिः छिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशयाः क्षीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे. भिद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिः छिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशयाः क्षीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे.
अतो वै कवयो नित्यं, कमा, भक्तिं परमया मुदा वासुदेवे भगवति, कमा, short e, kurvantyatma, that's one word, kurvantyatma prasadani. अतो वै कवयो नित्यं भक्तिं परमया मुदा वासुदेवे भगवति कुर्वन्त्यात्म प्रसादनीम्.
अतो वै कवयो नित्यं भक्तिं परमया मुदा वासुदेवे भगवति कुर्वन्त्यात्मप्रसादनीम्. अतो वै कवयो नित्यं भक्तिं परमया मुदा वासुदेवे भगवति कुर्वन्त्यात्मप्रसादनीम्.
अथो वै कवयो नित्यं भक्तिं परमया मुदा वासुदेवे भगवति कुर्वन्त्यात्मप्रसादनीम्. अथो वै कवयो नित्यं भक्तिं परमया मुदा वासुदेवे भगवति कुर्वन्त्यात्मप्रसादनीम्.
Rajesh ji,
Rajesh, Bhagavateva, Bhagavatava.
भगवती.
Bhagavati சொல்லணும். Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Rajesh ji, why does it say Vasudeva Bhagavati? We saw it couple times now. What does it mean?
Bhagavati, see the context of Bhagavati is referring to the Vasudeva in the sense of Vasudeva only. But I think the Bhagavati, I'll have to go check in the Sanskrit, the Bhagavan, when you kind of put that like his, her, like off, it, like that kind of proposition, there should be some reference to that. I'll go check on that as to why it says Bhagavati there, right? But it's not referring to the female aspect of it though. It is some other reference there. Okay, so we'll just switch next 15 minutes. Sindhuji, you can be a student. Priya, Arun. Okay. So let's see if we can finish this today. So next couple of stanzas, we'll just do one time. And then if we have time, we'll do two, okay? Sattvam rajas tama iti prakriter Gunastaihi. So you put a visarga and comma there. Gunastaihi, comma. Next on that yukta, there is a ir that will go away. So yukta parah purusha eka ihasya dhatte stityadaye hari virinchi hareti sanyaha, comma. Shreyamsi tatra khalu sattva tanor nrinam syuhu. So even for this four
second
line,
line திருப்பி ஒரே வாட்டி சொல்லுங்களே எனக்கு
Stityadaye hari virinchi hareti sanyaha, comma. Shreyamsi tatra khalu sattva tanor nrinam syuhu.
அதுக்கு முன்னாடி யுக்த பரம புருஷன் கொடுத்திருக்கு.
Parama இல்ல வெறும் பரஹ தான் இருக்கு. So that becomes an F will come there. Paraf purusha.
Okay.
No matter. Okay. So even for this four lines, we'll use the same tune only. So you can try to adjust to that. Sattvam rajastamaite prakritirgunastaihi yuktah parah purusha eka ihasya dhatte stityadaye hari virinchi hareti sanyaha shreyamsi tatra kalu sattvatanonrinam syuhu.
Sattvam rajastama idi prakrite gunastaihi yukta parah purusha eka ihasya dhatte stityadaye hari virinji haredi samnyaha shreyamsi tatra khalu sattvatanor syuhu. Sattvam rajastam.
One time is good for next few stanzas.
Sattvam rajastamaithi prakritergunastaihi yuktah parah purusha ekahi hasya datte stityadye hari virinchi hareti sanya shreyamsi tatra kalu sattvatanor nrinam syuhu.
And the sanyaha on the third line, Priya. Okay.
Sanyaha, sorry.
Visarga. Parthivad dharuno, double the other. Parthivad dharuno dhumaha. That is there. Remove it. Visarga, comma, dhumaha. Tasmad agnistraimayaha. Tasmad agnistraimayaha. Tamasastu rajas tasmat, comma. Sattvam yat brahma darshanam. Parthivad dharuno dhumaha. Tasmad agnistrayimaya tamasastu rajastasmat sattvam yad brahma darshanam.
Parthivad daruno dhumaha tasmad agnistrayimaya tamasastu rajastasmad sattvam yad brahma darshanam.
Parthivad daruno dhumaha tasmat agnistrayimaya tamasastu rajastasmat sattvam yat brahma darshanam.
Bhejire munayothagre. It will go as one flow. Munayothagre, comma. Bhagavantam adokshajam. You can break it that ma if you want. Adokshajam. Sattvam vishuddham kshemaya, comma. Kalpante yenu taniha. Bhejire munayotagre bhagavantam adokshajam sattvam vishuddham kshemaya kalpante yenu taniha.
Bhejire munayodhagre bhagavantam adokshajam sattvam vishuddham kshemaya kalpante yenu taniha.
Vejire munayodagre bhagavantam adokshajam sattvam vishuddham kshemaya kalpante yenutaniha.
Mumukshavo ghora rupan, comma, hitva bhuta pathinatha narayana kalash shantaha. So put a visarga there. So this is an extra visarga which we are adding is only because we are stopping there. If you are not stopping there, you don't have to put the visarga. So shantaha, comma, bhajanti hyanasuyavaha. Mumukshavo ghora rupan hitva bhutapati natha narayana kalashantaha bhajanti hyanasuyavaha.
Mumukshavo ghora rupan hitva bhutapati natha narayana kalashantaha bhajanti hyanasuyavaha.
मुमुक्षो वा घोररूपान् हित्वा भूतपतीनत नारायणकला शान्ताः भजन्ति ह्यनसूयवः.
Priya, the first word mumukshavo.
Oh, sorry. मुमुक्षवो घोररूपान्.
Rajas tamah prakritayah, comma, samashila bhajanti vai pitru bhuta prajeshadin, comma, shriya aishwarya, 2 words there, shriya prajepsavah. Rajastamah prakritayah samashila bhajanti vai pitrubhuta prajeshadin shriyaishwarya prajepsavah.
रजस्तमप्रकृतयः समशीला भजन्ति वै पितृभूतप्रजेशादीन् श्रियैश्वर्यप्रजेप्सवः.
रजस्तमः प्रकृतयः रजस्तमः प्रकृतयः समशीला भजन्ति वै पितृभूत प्रजेशान्तीन् श्रियैश्वर्य प्रजेप्सवः.
So next 2 stanzas, I'm not going to say word by word, it's pretty simple ones. The only thing you have to do is in the next stanza 28, because we're going to stop in the middle, that Veda becomes Vedaha. Then the next line Yoga becomes Yogaha. Okay, and then the comma will come in between. Vasudeva para Vedaha, Vasudeva para Makhaha, Vasudeva para Yogaha, Vasudeva para Kriyaha.
वासुदेव परा वेदाः वासुदेव परा मघाः वासुदेव परा योगाः वासुदेव परा क्रियाः.
वासुदेव परा वेदाः वासुदेव परा मकाः वासुदेव परा योगाः वासुदेव परा क्रियाः.
वासुदेव परं ज्ञानं वासुदेव परं तपः वासुदेव परो धर्मो वासुदेव परा गतिः.
वासुदेव परं ज्ञानं वासुदेव परं तपः वासुदेव परो धर्मो वासुदेव परा गतिः.
वासुदेव परं ज्ञानं वासुदेव परं तपः वासुदेव परो धर्मो वासुदेव परा गतिः.
स एवेदं ससर्जाग्रे, comma, Bhagavan Atma Mayaya. You can break it that na if you want. Next word, Sad Asad Rupaya. 3 words there if you are breaking it. Sad Asad Rupaya Chasau, comma, Guna Maya Guno Vibhuhu. Sa evedam sasarjagre Bhagavan Atma Mayaya Sadasad Rupaya Chasau Gunamaya Guno Vibhuhu.
स एवेदं ससर्जाग्रे भगवानात्ममायया सदसद्रूपया चासौ गुणमय्या गुणो विभुः.
स एवदं ससर्जाग्रे करेक्ट. स एवेदं ससर्जाग्रे भगवानात्ममायया ससद्रूपया चासौ गुणमय्या गुणो विभुः.
On the second line, first word, Sad Asad, just say it, that'll be easier. Sad Asad Rupaya.
Sadasad Rupaya Chasau.
Yeah.
Sadasad, right?
Yeah, it's Sad Asad Rupaya. It's Sad Asad Rupaya, 3 words, but just joins all that.
Okay.
Taya Vilasi Teshveshu, short U, Guneshu Gunavaniva, Antah Pravishta Abhati, short E, Vijnanena Vijrumbhitaha. Tatha Vilasiteshveshu Guneshu Gunavaniva, Antah Pravishta Abhati, Vijnanena Vijrumbhitaha.
Rajesh, is it Taya or
Taya?
Tata?
Taya. Oh, what did I say? The first line, right?
Yeah.
First word.
Yeah. Taya
Taya.
Vilasi. Sorry.
Okay. तया विलसिदेशेषु गुणेषु गुणवानिव अन्धप्रविष्ट आभाति विज्ञानेन विजृम्भितः
तया विलसितेष्वेषु गुणेषु गुणवानिव अन्तः प्रविष्ट आभाति विज्ञानेन विजृम्भितः
यथा ह्यवहितो vannihi. So put a visarga and a comma there. Vannihi. Next on top of that darushve, it will be a ir that goes away. So darushvekas swayonishu, short u. Naneva bhati vishwatma, comma. Bhuteshu cha tatapuman. Yata hyavahito vannihi darushvekasvayonishu naneva bhati vishwatma bhuteshu cha tatapuman.
यदा ह्यवहितो वह्निः दारुष्वेगस्वयोनिषु नानेव भाति विश्वात्मा भूतेषु च तदा पुमान्
यथा ह्यवहितो वह्निः दारुष्वेगस्वयोनिषु नानेव भाति विश्वात्मा भूतेषु च तथा पुमान्
ராஜேஷ் ஒரு குவிக் கொஸ்டின்
Ah.
அது வந்து வக்திஹியா வன்னிஹியா
அதான் அது வந்து நம்ம தேவி மாத்மியத்துல சொன்ன மாதிரி இட்ஸ் காட் டூ டிஃப்ரெண்ட் டிபெண்டிங் ஆன் ஹூ யூ ஆஸ்க் இட் வில் சே ஒன் ஆர் தி அதர் ஓகே ஸோ அதனால அது ரொம்ப வி டோன்ட் ஹேவ் டு வரி அபவுட் இட் ஸோ ஜென்ரலி ரெக்கமெண்டேஷன் இஸ் த ஹா சவுண்ட் இஸ் சைலண்ட் ஓகே ஸோ இட்ஸ் லைக் ஒன் அந்த ஒரு நேசல்ல வரும் அது நிஹி நிஹி அப்படின்னு தட் நேசல் த ஏர் ஹேஸ் டு கம் அவுட் தட்ஸ் த ரைட் வே ஓகே
ஓகே
but it's okay vahni it's accepted also asau gunamayair bhavaihi so put a visarga and comma there next on top of that bhuta there is a ir that goes away bhuta sukshmendriyatmabhihi one word sukshmendriyatmabhihi swa nirmiteshu nirvishto comma bhunkte bhuteshu tadgunan असौ गुणमयैर्भावैः भूतसूक्ष्मेन्द्रियात्मभिः स्वनिर्मितेषु निर्विष्टो भुङ्क्ते भूतेषु तद्गुणान्
असौ गुणमयैर्भावैः भूतसूक्ष्मेन्द्रियात्मभिः स्वनिर्मितेषु निर्विष्टो भुङ्क्ते भूतेषु तद्गुणान्
असौ गुणमयैर्भावैः भूतसूक्ष्मेन्द्रियात्मभिः स्वनिर्मितेषु निर्विष्टो भुङ्क्ते भूतेषु तद्गुणान्
भावयत् येष सत्त्वेन लोकान् वै लोकभावनः लीलावतारानुरथो that is 3 words there leela avatara anuratho but it's all together so leela avatara anuratho comma deva tiryang naradishu a short word end bhavayatyesha satvena lokan vai loka bhavanah leela avatara anuratho deva tiryang naradishu
भावयत्येष सत्त्वेन लोकान् वै लोकभावनः लीलावतारानुरतो देवधिर्याङ्गरादिषु
भावयत्येष सत्त्वेन लोकान् वै लोकभावनः लीलावतारानुरतो देवतिर्यङ्
தேவதிரியங் இங்கு சவுண்ட் அவ்வளவுதாங்க
देवतिर्यङ् नरादिषु
इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां प्रथमस्कन्धे नैमिषीयोपाख्याने द्वितीयोऽध्यायः श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविंदा गोविंदा सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you everyone. We rushed a little bit, but we finished 2, so that is good.
Very good class. Thank you,
Okay.
Rajesh.
All right,
Thank you,
Rajesh.
Rajesh.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Some of you at
Bye.
3 o'clock. Bye.
Yeah.